Hi, my name is Bradley Dillon of 4U3.com, and we are at Summer Slaughter Tour 2013 in Orlando, Florida. Here's a new friend of mine. Why don't you introduce yourself and what you do and also what band you're in? They're really good, by the way.
My name is Robin, and I play in a band called Pelagial. I play guitar, actually.
Alright, first question for you today. With Summer Slaughter having some really good, but generally a diverse lineup, you've got some death metal, you've got some progressive metal, and then you've got Dillinger Escape Plan, who are just really chaotic and awesome. Where do you guys fit? What kind of attention and things like that have you got on this tour?
I don't know. I don't really think we fit in with the rest of this package really well, but that's not only applying to us. I think there's a lot of bands that really have kind of created a niche of their own, like the Dillinger Escape Plan, like Animals as Leaders, and I kind of feel that this is true for ourselves as well. The first couple of bands are all in that like deathcore, like death metal vein, and then it gets like more diverse towards the end, which is cool. Like it is, like you said, a really diverse lineup, and that was the reason why we agreed to do this tour, because it had a reputation of being a straight up death metal tour, and that's why we were really skeptical at first whether like this would even make any sense for us to do. But when I saw the lineup with all these bands, especially like the bands playing a bit later in the evening, I was like, yeah, this is an amazing lineup, and I think we would fit in really well there. And yeah, it's been great so far. It's been an amazing experience and really good exposure for us. Obviously, we want to come back to headline in like spring next year. So this is just like it's a 25-minute set. It's really short, especially for us with our lengthy epic compositions. That means playing like 2.5 songs basically. But it's just like to throw it out there, and to make people come back when we headline, so that's the reason.
Yeah, because I'd imagine when you guys are back home, you probably play 2, 3, 4 times the length you do when you're touring out here. So what are some of the differences when you're touring back home rather than touring in the US in a package like this?
It's tough. It's 10-15 minutes changeovers is really not a lot of time to get all the stuff to work, because we have a very technical setup where a drummer plays to a click, and there's backing tracks and like my guitar effects and amp channels are switched by MIDI and all that, and it just takes a little while to set up our stuff and test it, and within 15 minutes that's hard, within 10 minutes it's nearly impossible, and then sometimes when we have to struggle with other stories. So it's very rushed and very stressful in a way, but you do find your routine. It took us like two or three nights. The first 2 shows were not really too great for us, the first 3 shows actually, but now we've kind of like moved in and everything works smooth. And yeah, I mean, touring the US is quite different from touring Europe. Like Europe, you always have promoters providing accommodation and food for you. In the US, that's usually not the case, except for the House of Blues, which is awesome. So you have to organize everything just by yourself, basically, and that's just something you have to know and you have to deal with. We're always staying with people, and by now we've toured the US 4 times, so we have pretty much friends and acquaintances in all the cities that we're playing on this tour, so it's not really difficult. It just takes some organizing. In Europe, it's more like you don't really have to take care of so much stuff yourself. So yeah, that's one of the differences.
Alright, now I know your new album, Precambrian, is one of my personal favorite albums this year. I hadn't heard from you guys in a while, even though I know you had released albums, so it's like, why haven't I listened to these guys in forever? But so how did that album resonate with your fans as far as the music goes? Is it something that a lot of people really enjoyed?
Yeah, the responses have been amazing for this album. Much better than I expected, actually, because I don't think it's so different or such a step up in quality compared to our previous records, but apparently everyone loves the album. The press has been really good everywhere pretty much, in the US as well as in Europe, and the fans really seem to like it too. I guess it was like when we released Heliocentric after Precambrian, a lot of people had trouble like getting into that record at first, because we had a new vocalist, we had clean vocals for the first time, and then there were some really quiet tracks on that record that were basically just consisting of piano and like clean vocals, and everyone was complaining back then, like, oh, those guys are not metal anymore or whatever. But I guess by now everyone has realized that this band has been evolving, and we're still heavy, and we're still like I guess you can still call it metal what we do to some degree, and it seems like our old fans and our new fans now are kind of like reconciling. That's cool with this album. I think that's accomplish what I did, maybe.
Yeah, because a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people who are really big metalheads think that if you add pianos or string instruments or clean vocals, it's suddenly not metal anymore, and that couldn't be further from the truth because prog metal bands from long ago, Cynic, great bands like that have always had elements of that in their sound. So
yeah, of course, and we've never really conceived of ourselves as a plain mere metal band. We always had these elements. Even with our first record, Fuck Diver, that came out in 2003, we've had strings and classical instruments incorporated into a metal context basically. And I think that works perfectly. It doesn't have to be cheesy gay symphonic metal just because you didn't use classical instruments. The cello is a fucking violent instrument. You can create really low notes and resonances with that, and I think it fits perfect with the textures and the electronic textures of the music. So it's I don't know, people are usually really narrow-minded in that regard, but that's why I always said from the beginning that we don't conceive of the Ocean as a plain metal band, playing music that we find inspiring and that we like actually, and that can incorporate influences from all different kinds of musical genres and also instruments from different niches and different musical styles, and not just from the typical metal setup of two guitars, drums, and a bass player.
So how do you feel that classical music and metal can tie in together? Not necessarily with your band, but with metal in general. How do you think these genres tie together?
Well, usually they don't tie together in a way that I like, because usually it is in this symphonic metal context, and I hate that. I think this whole nightwish kind of thing. I think that's the worst. It's the abortion of metal to me, really. So usually it doesn't work really well. There's not too many bands that manage to pull it off in a way that is cool, but there are a few bands that do, and it's all a matter of what approach you take and what you want to express musically and how you go about doing that. And also a matter of production, of course, because usually when you hear classical instruments in metal, it's always with tons of reverb, and it's this really cheesy kind of wannabe symphonic kind of approach to it, and we're not really doing that. All the instruments we use are always real instruments played by real players and recorded in a real studio, so there's no samples for strings, for example. We don't use violins on the samples or stuff like that. We use actual players, and usually we don't use big orchestras to record. We use string quartet at max. So you have that kind of intimate or close setup, and that doesn't require a shit ton of reverb. We want people to hear the actual movement of the bow, and the creaking of the strings and that kind of stuff, because that's just what makes it real. And I think that's what's lacking in a lot of the classical / metal kind of symbiosis that you usually get, because it's always this huge orchestral approach of an 80 people orchestra, or even worse, samples of an 80 player orchestra, and that's not what we want. We want that intimate string sound, really.
Alright, last question for you today, actually. Another thing I really enjoyed about Pelagial is the artwork. Who did the artwork, and what's the symbolism behind it?
Well, the artwork was done by 3 different guys, actually. Selden Hunt did the actual illustrations of the digipack. That is just a color blending from light blue to black, reflecting this journey from the surface to the bottom of the sea that this album is. Over 10 panels of a digipack, so if you unfold it, it gets progressively darker from white to black. And that's what the album is doing musically too. The album is a concept album that is a journey from the surface to the bottom of the sea, basically. And so the music starts out really playful and lightweight, and then grows progressively darker and heavier and lower in tuning as we're progressing towards the end of the album, basically. So we're doing that musically, and of course the artwork reflects that too. Going from light to dark, basically, or from low, high to low, and to deep. And so it was Selden Hunt who did the illustrations. Then we released a limited edition acrylic box set version of the album that comes with an acrylic box that has 5 different acrylic layers. They're all printed, 1 layer for every pelagial depth zone. There are 5 depth zones, basically, starting at the surface level and going down to the bottom of the sea. And that was done by Martin Quamme, who also was responsible for pretty much all our previous album artwork since Aeolian. And then the booklet was actually designed by the guy who did the movie. The album in the limited edition is being released with a DVD that has a movie. that is basically also the whole instrumental album, visualized by Precambrian, and some of those images from the movie are appearing in the booklet, and that was put together by Craig and a friend of mine from Berlin. So it's a very collaborative effort of different people being involved, all working on different parts, but somehow it came together.